This podcast is presented by Skies Magazine. If you're interested in the Canadian aviation industry, Skies is your go-to multimedia resource for the latest news, in-depth features, stunning photography, and insightful video coverage. Whether you're an aviation professional or enthusiast, Skies is dedicated to keeping you informed and bringing your passion for aviation to life. Visit skiesmag.com to learn more and subscribe to stay updated on all things Canadian aviation.
Fuel and ignition switches on. RPM switches set. TD switches normal. Doors and hatches closed. Light out. Strobe light on. Restart check is complete. Clear left. Engineers, start number 2. Starting 2. Wind 31010 Pilot Project Podcast. Clear takeoff. Runway 31 left.
All right, we're ready for departure here at the Pilot Project Podcast, the best source for stories and advice from RCAF and mission aviation pilots, brought to you by Skies Magazine. I'm your host, Brian Morrison. With me today are two special guests, Captain Jason Shaw and Sergeant Vince C-Benoit, both of 435 Transport and Rescue Squadron in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Jason is a pilot on the CC-130H Hercules, and Vince is a search and rescue technician, or SAR Tech. Guys, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yep, thanks for having us.
So today we're going to talk about their careers and the training they've been through. And then in the second half of the interview, we'll be talking about a rescue the two of them and their crew took part in just over a year ago in December of 2023 when an Air Tindi flight crashed in the Northwest Territories. But before we jump into any of that, let's go through their bios. Jason joined the military in 2002 as a Land Communication and Information Systems Technician, or LCIS Tech, which was an Army NCM trade. He was posted to Petawawa until 2010, and during that time, he deployed to Bosnia and Afghanistan. In 2010, he was accepted in the University Training Plan for Non-Commissioned Members, or UTP-NCM, as a pilot, and he went to the Royal Military College in Kingston to get his degree. Towards the end of that program, he was accepted on a scholarship program and obtained his master's degree in physics. In 2016, he was posted to Moose Jaw and completed Phase 2 on the CT-156 Harvard. The following year, he began Phase 3 on the C-90B King Air in Portage la Prairie and ultimately received his wings in 2018. That same year, he was posted to 435 Transport and Rescue Squadron in Winnipeg to fly the CC-130H Hercules. In 2019, he completed his course at the CC-130H Operational Training Unit, or OTU, in Trenton to become an operational SAR First Officer. He upgraded to SAR Aircraft Commander in 2022 and since then has worked in a variety of training and standards roles at 435 Squadron. Vince joined the Infantry Reserve at 2006 at the age of 16, driven by a desire to serve in Afghanistan during the height of the global war on terrorism. In the fall of 2007, he was posted to 2nd Vanduz Regiment in Valcartier, and he deployed to Kandahar in 2009 as an infantryman. While overseas, one of his key responsibilities was Tactical Combat Casualty Care, or TCCC, which provided him with his first exposure to patient care in a combat environment. Following his deployment, he pursued a role in Sniper Platoon, where he served for 6 years and completed multiple advanced qualifications, including Reconnaissance Sniper, Advanced Mountain Instructor, Helicopter Insertion Instructor, and Airborne, Round and Square Parachute qualifications. In 2015, while instructing on the Advanced Mountain Operator, or AMO course, he executed a highly technical mountain rescue of a fellow instructor. This event was a pivotal moment in his career, inspiring him to transition to search and rescue. He was selected for SAR training in the winter of 2016 and attended SAR Tech Course 50, graduating in 2017. He was subsequently posted to 424 Squadron in Trenton, where he progressed to team leader and standards positions. During his time there, he participated in numerous missions utilizing the CH-146 Griffin and the CC-130H Hercules. In July 2021, he was posted to 435 Squadron, initially serving as the SAR Tech Training IC and currently holding the position of Deputy SAR Tech Leader, or DSTL. The year 2023 was particularly significant in his career as he led multiple high-impact missions, including 3 operational jumps, 2 in response to plane crashes, and a night water jump for a critically injured patient. So, guys, thank you both for your service in Afghanistan. I have a ton of respect for anyone who served in Afghanistan, especially you guys on the ground. That must have been a crazy experience, so thank you both. So, Jason, you joined the CAF as an LCIS tech. What inspired you to join the military?
And just before we answer that, for the listeners, LCIS Tech is Land Communications and Information Systems Tech. It's one of the older signals trades in the Army that were eventually amalgamated under a different trade.
Yeah, I think I kind of got interested in the military towards the tail end of high school. Wasn't quite sure what trade I wanted to do. Even went in to talk to a recruiter a little bit and still wasn't really sure. So I ended up going to college after high school. I took a electronics engineering diploma in college. And even during that time, towards the tail end of that program, as my friends in the program they were starting to look for jobs in the industry, the desire to go in the military stuck with me. At the same time, too, 9/11 happened during my third year in college. So that definitely changed just the whole kind of culture that was going on at the time. So yeah, decided right then to make a career out of it.
And how do you feel your experience as an LCIS tech influences your perspectives as a pilot?
I wouldn't say it was my experience as my actual trade, but I think being an NCM before I was an officer helped me out a little bit, especially as I got farther along in my upgrade. Just enabled me to kind of see it from both perspectives, relate to the different crew members, NCMs and officers. Probably helped me out a little bit that way.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of times I hear that people who are started as an NCM make some of the best officers just because they have that perspective and they've had that experience of what it's like to be an NCM and kind of see the good sides and the bad sides of different leaders.
Yeah, pilots in particular, through the training system, you don't really see NCMs very much. Like you're on a course with a bunch of other pilots and you get all the way through the OTU and eventually at your operational squadron, which that's kind of the first time you're actually going to be working on a daily basis with NCM. So yeah, I know just for me having that experience prior to that probably made it a little bit easier to relate to everyone in the squadron. Yeah,
for sure. The techs and they're members of the crew and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Vince, you joined as infantry in the years following 9/11. What was it like to be in the combat arms in those days?
It was a different time for sure. Back then, everybody was focused on a mission. Everybody at that point wanted to deploy, and that was everybody was driven by it. I joined at 16. That's what I wanted to do. And that kind of carried over until we got out of there at 2011, I believe Canadians got out of there. I'm not quite sure what the date. It was nice because everybody had a common goal at that time. Yeah.
How did your experience in the infantry shape how you conduct yourself as a SAR Tech?
Yeah, I gained a lot through the infantry, especially leadership wise, and that's helping me now as a SAR Tech leader, as a team lead in the plane. Also being able, we'll talk about more sniper stuff, but being working in small teams and be highly relied upon by the chain of command, being able to take decision on the fly and stay calm in chaotic situation. That helped me as a SAR Tech for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, in my experience, like the guys and girls I worked with who are Army first, like the leadership piece is such a strong, there's such strong emphasis on leadership within the Army. I always found that they made like really, really strong leaders and had very like, how can I put this? Like in the aircrew world, you don't get a ton of leadership training, right? So hopefully you're a good leader. Hopefully you've had good mentorship. But people who come from the Army, like they know leadership. They know the principles of leadership and they know exactly how to be a good leader.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I wanted to add that to what Jay mentioned. I think he's too humble to say it, but I think his background helped him as a aircraft commander, because he's got, as a SAR pilot, he's got to manage not only the plane, but he's got to manage all the crew and the decision making. So I think that definitely helped him become a better leader in the plane and have a direct impact on the mission.
So Jason, during your time in the Army, you deployed to Bosnia and Afghanistan. What were those experiences like?
Yeah, they're both quite a bit different from each other. Like Bosnia was in 2003, 2004, it was the tail end of kind of large scale Canadian involvement in Bosnia. I think I was in the last full rotation to, I was in Velika Kladuša at the time, which is kind of the northern area of Bosnia. Not a lot going on at the time. I was in a support role as well, but I got a chance to see a part of the world that I never would have went to on my own and work with a really good group of people as well. I went to Afghanistan in 2005, 2006, and it would have been prior to when Vince went. It was during a transitional time. We were moving from the northern part of Afghanistan up in Kabul. So that was the first few months I was there. And we were basically taking the entire Canadian footprint and moving it down to Kandahar, where RC South would eventually, the rotation following ours is what most Canadians would kind of remember as the large scale Canadian combat operations in Afghanistan. So the last couple of months it was really just about building up the camp and the infrastructure for the follow-on battle group from one PPCL that came in after us. But both experiences were really good. Enjoy them both.
What were those early days in Afghanistan like? Was there like a ton of fighting yet, or how did that look?
Well, for us, no. It was the rotation after mine in the summer of 2006 that stuff really kicked off. But it was kind of strange. And we were in CAF, which is Kandahar Airfield. It was the largest base in Afghanistan at the time. And when the Canadians went down there, we just had this large area of the camp was just gravel. But at the same time, different areas of the camp, there was like Pizza Hut and Burger King and that kind of thing. So it was kind of a weird experience being there when we didn't really have anything, but other areas of the camp did.
Yeah.
But we really focused on the last couple of months. We were just doing everything we could to set the next rotation up for success.
Yeah. Did you have any intense experiences in either place?
Not really a lot. No, like Bosnia, like I said, it was the tail end of what was going on there.
Yeah.
And Afghanistan, a lot of the focus was setting up for the follow-on rotations.
Yeah.
Which would, like I said, that was the large-scale combat operations that probably most Canadians are familiar with for Afghanistan.
What was your role exactly as an LCIS tech?
So an LCIS tech, it's a technician. The trade's even changed now, but it's a technician with the Army, within the Army signals.
Okay.
So for the most part, I fixed and repaired Army tactical communications gear. So all the stuff that you would see in Army vehicles, all the radios and the kind of equipment they had in there, we would work on, we'd fix. The stuff that the infantry guys would be carrying as comms gear, we would be fixing that kind of stuff too.
Okay.
That's mostly what I did. The trade did a lot more than that as far as networks and beyond line of sight communication stuff. But I mostly focus on like tactical communications.
Okay. So almost kind of like the Army's version of like an avionics tech.
Yeah, that'd be the closest comparison. Yep, for sure.
Vince, in Afghanistan, one of your responsibilities was tactical combat casualty care. Has caring for the wounded and injured always been something you were interested in, or was this just assigned to you?
To be honest, it was initially just assigned to me. I just raised my hand for something else that I didn't really know what I was getting into. Turns out, let's say after my first experience overseas, I was hooked.
Yeah. What was your first mass casualty event in Afghanistan like, and did you feel prepared by your training?
I was really prepared, and that's what I want to talk about that for a little bit. Is it really, that day really drove my training vision for now. It's been close to 18 years that I've been serving. That specific moment really set my vision for training, and so what happened is we were 2 days or 3 days into tour. I did not have all my gear yet. My gear did not arrive from Canada yet. And we left for that operation. We would go and take a village that's called Mushan there in Kandahar. It was a big operation. Anyways, conduct the operation, and then we came back. And then one of the Leopard tank got stepped on an IED, and 3 Canadian members were in it. And then we did exactly what we were supposed to. 3 did them. But I remember having that clear thought, and I still remember to this day, and it still drives me. I was 19 years old overseas. And I remember looking at that person that I was treating. He was a fellow Canadian. I remember thinking, wow, this is exactly as I was trained for. That person right now is, of course, suffering. Mm-hmm. But I detached myself from that because I was pre-exposed to that stress. And that person wasn't acting, but he was exactly the same as actors on the courses I received. So I was pre-exposed to that stress already. And we'll talk about it later into training stuff for SAR. But I still remember that clearly, like it was yesterday. And then we took those. That's kind of the first layer of this story. And then we took those wounded and brought them to a wheat field. I still remember like it was yesterday. It was a wheat field. I was on my knees. I remember having wheat up to my chest, and those 2 US Black Hawk came. One was orbiting and shooting. The other one came hot and landed in the wheat in front of us. And there's 2 PJs that step out of it.
And a PJ is a parajumper, right?
That's correct. That's kind of the tactical version of a SAR Tech, but for U.S. Air
For
Force.
combat.
Yeah. And I remember looking at those guys in awe. Like, okay, those guys are freaking heroes.
Mhm.
I want to be that person. And I still have a picture. I'll send it to you of that exact moment. That's engraved into my brain. And that's what kind of drove me towards SAR, because that's the closest thing we can do in Canada from PJ. So anyway, it was a good experience. I had many more casualties in mass cas across during that tour that we can do an entire podcast on that. But that first exposure to it was a positive experience for me, and I'm carrying that right now.
Oh, that's amazing. That sounds like such a crazy, intense experience to go through. And yeah, the PJs, they're wild. When I was in Kuwait, we did a tour of their facility, the whole rescue facility. We saw the Hercs they had ready to go with all their gear. All the PJs are like 8 feet tall and made of muscle. And yeah, like you said, they look like heroes. It's pretty comforting to know they're around when you're out flying your missions and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Jason, you decided to make the move from the Army to the RCAF. What started your passion for aviation, and what made you try to pursue that within the RCAF?
Well, it started when I was a young kid. Maybe not the typical story, but I remember, being 10, 11 years old, playing flight simulator on my parents' computer. It was back in the days when you had like a computer room, and yeah, that's really all I had access to, though. Like there wasn't the opportunity to actually pursue flying like in aircraft where I was from. So I just kind of had that interest, and it just stayed with me. I didn't have the opportunity when I first got in the military to be a pilot, so I just kind of kept it alive. And a few years later, that opportunity would come up again, and I took advantage of it.
How did that opportunity come up? What's the story there?
Well, that's through the UTP-NCM program.
Right.
So it's an in-service selection program for NCMs to become officers. In that particular program, I think it still is. It's open to all officer MOCs. So I waited, to a point in my career where I thought I'd be like a decent candidate for that program. I'd done a couple of deployments by that time with some courses and stuff, and did aircrew selection as part of the application for that program, and ultimately got accepted to be a pilot through UTP-NCM.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, the aircrew selection that you did, was that still the one where you went and sat in the simulator? Or was it the newer one?
Yeah, I think I was. So when I did it, that was called CAPS, and it was the little simulators. There's one now in the museum in Trenton. But at the same time, that was a part of the course that counted for our selection. If I remember, it was maybe 3 sessions in those simulators, and then like the test day. But at the same time, we were doing the tests that I think they do now. And if I remember, they were just kind of trying to evaluate both at the same time.
Okay. So you were kind of like a hybrid course?
Yeah, maybe it was the CAP stuff that actually counted for us. But we were at the same time doing it was like computer-based testing, if I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
You decided to pursue further education and get a master's degree at RMC. What made you want to do that instead of pursuing flight training as quickly as possible?
Yeah, so at the time, as part of UTP-NCM, I was doing my bachelor's degree at RMC. And during my 3rd year, I think I found out about a program. It was called Postgraduate on Scholarship. And the program, I'm not sure if it's changed. It was open to any DEO or ROTP cadets that were still doing their undergraduate degree, and then you could apply and you basically just continue on right into doing your master's. So I had done well enough academically during my undergraduate degree that I thought I'd be, again, like a decent enough candidate to apply. So it was really about opportunity. I was already in like academic mindset. It's kind of hard to get out of that and go back into it, especially to start a master's. I was in Kingston. I was going to continue on in Kingston.
Yeah.
So I applied in my 3rd year and got selected for one of the spots. So it just ended up being like a 6-year block of university for me instead of 4.
Yeah. And I think you're totally right, especially as aircrew. You get out of that academic mode, you get into the operational world. It's really, really tough to find the time and space. There are people who do it, obviously. I don't know how they manage to do it. Some people do it concurrently, like while still flying. I can definitely see the value in doing it first and then just moving on with your flight training.
Yeah, and I remember when I started my master's, a couple guys from the Air Force came back and who had been flying for a few years, and it was just difficult for them to get back into it. They had to take even a couple maybe preparatory courses to get the math skills back up and that.
Yeah.
So I was really just to be able to continue right on in that same mode, probably a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. How do you feel that further education experience has helped you as a pilot?
I wouldn't say I've taken anything from, a direct 1-for-1 transfer that I did during any, university course. It's just, I had spent that long learning how to become a good learner, I would say, how to manage my time, study habits. So learning when you're doing flying training, it's quite a bit different than post-secondary courses, but some of the same stuff applies, like managing your time, just getting in study habits. That's really what I was able to take to it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to talk a little bit about Jason's training, and then we're going to swing around and talk with Vince about some of his training as a SAR Tech. So Jason, how did phase 1 flight training go for you on the G128 Grobe?
Yeah, I did phase 1 on the Grobe after my 4th year and before I started my master's. So I think the build up to phase 1 at the time, I was really looking forward to it, but also really nervous about it.
Yeah.
Because I spent 4 years kind of watching other guys go, and you hear it's this course, if you have to pass it if you're going to be a pilot. So kind of spent almost 4 years getting really nervous about it. And every summer guys would come back and we'd hear who passed and who failed and how hard the course was. But when you get there, it's just a flying course. I think it's whatever it was at the time, 20 some hours. I started in May. I was done by late July. No real hiccups or anything. I had previously went and got maybe 8 or 9 hours just on a Cessna at the Kingston Flying Club to help me prepare. Probably didn't even matter. So really that course was my first time really flying under like a proper, like a structured course.
Yeah.
Ultimately successful in that one, and then went back for 2 more years to finish off university stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm sure. So I bypassed phase 1. I'm sure, though, I would have been quite nervous for it if I had gone for it, because I always had the same kind of thoughts in mind, like, oh, this is a selection course. It's make or break. But more and more, the more I talk to, especially as I've done this podcast and talk to instructors and stuff, it's more and more like, it's not as much anymore about weeding people out, because we trust that our aircrew selection is largely doing that. It's really about trying to get as many people who are capable of passing to pass. Yeah,
I've heard that too. That I don't know if that's their official stance. It's a transition from a selection thing to what you said, but I was definitely nervous about it. But when you look back on phase 1 after you're an operational pilot, it's just like a blip almost. You don't even really remember it that much.
Yeah, for sure. For phase 2, you got to fly on the CT-156 Harvard 2. How was that experience for you? And did you have any big challenges?
Yeah, phase 2 was good. It's, as everyone knows, it's really that core course for pilots that most of the skills you learn in phase 2 I still use today, and you just apply further on. I started the flying phase in phase 2 in January, so there were some challenges there with the weather. Yeah, for the most part, made it through a couple hiccups with some tests and stuff. I think it actually benefited me in the end. I learned to manage stress a little bit better and to really not make things bigger than they actually were. So I finished phase 2 later on in 2017, and then spent a couple months there working as a scheduler before going to phase 3.
Okay, so like time for a short break before you went on phase 3, but not too long.
Yeah, a couple months working as a scheduler. I guess it's an interesting story. It was at the end of phase 2. Selected to be a rotary pilot, to be a helicopter pilot.
Okay.
So I was like thinking, okay, like that's what I was going to do. When I first applied to be a pilot, I kind of made the decision I was going to be happy with whatever I got. Mm-hmm. That's where I was coming from my former trade. So I was just embraced that. And then something came up with a multi-course. I think they were like 4 candidates short or something like that. And they ended up putting on a course later that year. And it was really a matter of right place, right time. I was working as a scheduler in Bandit Flight in Moose Jaw, and got asked if I could leave in a week to do multi instead of helo. So I did that. So it's kind of one of those forks in your life that you never know how it's going to work out.
So was that when they offered you the chance to do multi? Did you take that because you wanted multi, or because I like I said, I would be happy with anything, but I wanted multi. I started flying training
wanting multi right from the time I was in phase one.
Okay, that's really cool that happened.
Yeah, that worked out. Yeah.
So you found out you're going multi, you go to phase 3, and by that point, most people are usually in a groove when it comes to flight training. Did you find there were any new big challenges on phase 3?
Yeah, I would generally agree with that. It's kind of for pilots the first exposure to the crewed environment, just you and another pilot basically at that point. I really enjoyed that. I started to feel probably like multi was a really good choice because I did enjoy the crew environment. And it's also the first time away from the portage of the Moose Jaw bubble. So I really liked, we had cross country. So it was before COVID. So we were really able to go out, and I think the Canadian one we went to as far out as Tofino, Kelowna, and Calgary. We managed to get all the way out there. And then the US one down to Minneapolis and Denver. So yeah, I left phase 3 like feeling confident, like I got everything out of the course that I wanted to.
Yeah, phase 3 is a fun course. If you can shrug off the stress and just enjoy it for what it is, like you're going to some cool places, you're flying a pretty fun little plane, like it's a good course. So you finished phase 3 and were selected to fly the CC-130H Hercules for search and rescue. Was that what you wanted, and how did you feel?
So when I finished phase 3 at the time, I don't know if it's still the same when you left, you got to fill out your list of, I think you give your list of 3 aircraft that you wanted to fly, and then your list of 3 locations you wanted. And they would try to kind of mesh those together and get you something you wanted. So Winnipeg and the H model Herc was not on either of those lists for me. But I've heard people say, well, you don't really know what you want. And it was actually true for me. So I put all the new air mobility stuff in Trenton. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. Probably the best thing that ever happened is I ended up in Winnipeg flying the H model. Worked out really well. I love what I'm doing now. So that's what I'd say to anyone kind of listening. If you don't feel too heartbroken, if you don't get exactly what you think you want, because, it might work out in the end.
Yeah, I've heard that so many times from various guests who have unexpected twists and turns in their career. And 9 times out of 10, it seems to me that it ends up being even better than what they had planned. Yeah,
most guys like their first squadron no matter what it is.
Yeah.
It's your first exposure being operational, and you're just going to embrace it.
Yeah, it's exciting, and it's like a special time in a pilot's life, in any air crew's life, to get to that first squadron and be part of the unit. What are the big skills a SAR pilot needs to learn to prepare for conducting rescues when they're on the operational training unit or OTU?
The OTU, I'd say the majority of the focus on the OTU is learning to fly the Herc, so building a base level of proficiency and a base level of knowledge about the aircraft and all the procedures. Towards the end of it, it's almost more of an exposure to the Herc in the SAR role. We really start building like a pilot up to be an aircraft commander once they start at the actual squadron. So yeah, the OTU is just those core flying skills with the Herc and exposure to beyond that.
So most of the focus is basically teaching you to be a safe and effective first officer, to fly the plane well, and to be a safe pilot with the aircraft. And then more of the tactics of SAR come on the unit.
Well, towards the end of the OTU, there's a SAR phase and there's a kind of a strat phase too. So there's a bit of a SAR deploy, but again, looking back on that from when you actually started the squadron, it really does seem like almost like you get maybe a couple flights of each type of SAR mission we would do.
Mm-hmm.
And you really start building up that experience once you really started the squadron.
You said like the types of SAR flights you would do. Can you give me an example of those?
Yeah, just to summarize, day, land, like marine, and night. That's, if you could kind of take all that we do, you could almost group them into those three kind of areas.
Okay. You have now upgraded to SAR aircraft commander. How does the responsibility change moving into the commander role?
Yeah, I'd kind of walk you through it from the time you get to the squadron. So I've told a couple of the pilots in my job now that everything you do is kind of getting you to your first day at the squadron. And that's the first day you're actually really employed as a pilot. And so it takes about 2 to 3 years to upgrade a SAR first officer to an AC. The focus at first is, again, building up more proficiency with the aircraft and expanding all that knowledge that they need. The second part is kind of expanding out into the different positions, what the SAR Techs are doing, what the flight engineer is doing, what the rest of your crew is doing. In the third phase, we move into, we call it acting AC.
Mm-hmm.
So the last 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. The FO will be in the aircraft commander role under the guidance of an instructor pilot, learning to do the job as an AC. And I remember for myself, like after I finished that and upgraded, it's really good training. Like you really feel ready, kind of compared to maybe your first solo in the Harvard or something like that. It's a lot different though. I remember feeling like signing up the plane for my first time and going on my first mission or whatever, like, or even my first training day. There's a lot more responsibility, but it was built up over the course of a few years, and I actually felt ready. Like maybe you look back and like, oh yeah, there's no IP there this time, but for the most part, you know, you've built up enough experience to kind of baseline of being a safe and effective AC when you finish the training.
So you felt well prepared by the time you got there.
I did. I remember my first few nights being on Slash, kind of looking at my phone and maybe hoping it wouldn't ring.
Can you say what Slash is?
Okay, yeah. Slash is basically just our night shift.
Okay.
Yeah, we can, I know a couple of your questions later talk about our posture we have. But I remember early on, like that phone rings and you never know what's going to be on the other end. And somewhere inside, you're like, you feel confident you can probably deal with everything, but you don't necessarily know, right? Because you haven't had to do it by yourself. So that experience builds, and you start learning as an AC, you get a lot more comfortable. But I remember that first few months just being like, I'm pretty sure I can do anything that's going to be tasked of me, but you know, you don't 100% know yet either. So
yeah, I guess in the SAR world, like you really never know what's going to be on the other end of that phone call.
Well, the other end of the phone call for us is, you know, now it's the far west coast of BC, the North Pole, and the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
So it could be anything in that whole area, any time of day you're on. So to answer the phone, and like you instantly have to be able to kind of put your brain where that tasking is and adapt. You're used to it though.
Yeah, which is like a massive range of like types of terrain and even like the dangers of like mountainous terrain or various things. You
know, all in one, like in the summer, or let's say it's the fall, it could be winter somewhere where you're going, summer somewhere else, mountains, water, day, night. So
KF Aerospace, Canada's largest MRO and founding partner in SkyAlign for the Future Aircrew Training Program, is proud to be the exclusive North American dealer for the Grobe 120TP. The Grobe 120TP is a world-class training aircraft, combining turbine power, advanced avionics, side-by-side seating, and full aerobatic capability. Already trusted by the German Air Force, Canada's Future Aircrew Training Program, and militaries worldwide, it's built to deliver performance and reliability. With its versatility, the Grobe 120TP is the ideal platform for both military training and civilian programs, including upset recovery training. Go to kfaero.ca, that's kfaero.ca, to learn more and get in touch with us.
So Vince, we mentioned this in your bio, but when and why did you decide you would try to become a SAR Tech?
That's another story for an entire podcast too. I'll try to make it short. So I was a mountain operation instructor in the Army. So what that entails is you're an instructor for, well, back then there's 3 different courses we were teaching: basic mountain ops at the unit level, and then a complex terrain instructor course and advanced mountain operator course. Some of them were taught out west. So I believe it was in 2015, I was teaching out west in the Rockies, an advanced mountain operator course. And to keep it short, what we're teaching on those courses are climbing skills and all the rescue system and how to move troops through complex terrain at the Army level. You're teaching students all week climbing and complex skills, and on the weekend you go out, you pair up with an instructor and you go recce your routes that you're going to bring the student the week after. So it was a weekend. Good friend of mine and fellow instructor, we'll call him Ben. It's actually his last name is Benoit, like me. People think we're cousin. I got along with him very well. So we were out doing a recce. on Cascade Mountain. It's just outside of Banff. If you're on Main Street of Banff and you're looking out at the mountains, that's the big one right there.
Oh, wow.
So we're climbing. It's on the Sunday. We're 5 pitch up. So 5 pitch. A pitch would be on that specific mountain would be a 30-meter length of rope, and you alternate pitch as you climb. You put removable protection. We're about 5 pitch up, and we skip a pitch. I just don't want to bring it too technical. But the short story is, he was a stronger climber than me, and one of the rock he was holding ripped off the wall, and he tumbled down about 70 feet.
Oh, wow.
And the removable protection I'm talking about, they just ripped off the rock. So I never really arrested his fall with my rope, because we're always connected with a rope. So anyways, pretty complex rescue scenario at that point. I had to do exactly what I was teaching the students the week prior, and I did the rescue. When I showed up to him, he's a good friend of mine. He's semi-conscious, helmet's cracked, he's got broken leg. His clothing looked like he was attacked by a tiger. That's how much the rock kind of ripped everything he was wearing. So we're 5 feet pitch up, so we were halfway up the mountain. We can't climb up. So I had to do a rescue system to take him, to bring him down on my own all the way to the parking lot. I reflected a lot after that incident. I reflected a lot about the way I reacted, the way I conducted the medical part and the system. And I just wanted to be better at it. Like, I did it. Everybody was happy. You would talk to Ben. He's still very happy with the outcome of this. But I wanted to be the best at it, starting at that point. Again, that's how I conduct myself now, and the vision I have for training and the way I train my fellow SAR Techs. There's a point like that in my career that still drives me to this day. That was a big turning point. And because of that, I decided to go SAR.
So this is like a big pivotal moment for you, the same as that mass casualty event in Afghanistan was.
Yeah, I would say so. Very much so.
So before you were a SAR Tech, you trained as a sniper. As part of that, you gained many qualifications, including reconnaissance sniper, airborne mountain instructor, helicopter insertion instructor, and airborne round and square parachute qualifications. What is similar and what is different between that world and being a SAR Tech? And what qualities do you think helped you succeed in both?
Well, the major difference is now I train to save people. It was the opposite before.
Of course, yeah.
So different mindset, but a lot of skills that are related. If I dissect a sniper, we're working teams of 2 and 4. So I'm used to working small team environment. I was a corporal back then, and I would have a direct line with the CO, briefing him on his attack, on his battalion size attack with plus support. A corporal would brief him. Picture 3 companies plus artillery support, plus tank support, plus CAS.
Okay, well.
So there's a lot relying on a corporal that's telling him what's on the ground, because the corporal has been looking at that target for 4 days. So that was good. To go back to your question, what skills? Well, as a sniper, you're very advanced in navigation and in survival, because you're in pretty difficult environment all the time, because you get inserted on your own days in advance, and you just freeze. You freeze. There's nothing sexy about it.
Wow.
It's very tough, very difficult. So you gain a lot of resilience.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like something where a lot of mental resilience would be essential.
For sure. And we'll go back. We're here to talk about that mission, of course, so we'll talk about it. But yeah, small team, resilience, and I would say being relied upon was major thing I learned as a sniper. And then, of course, mountain instructor stuff. I'm that program that the Army run is awesome. It makes me a better product as a SAR Tech right now, because I can teach all my all the SAR Techs about complex rigging and rope. That's easy for me. Helicopter insertion, well, I had many hours on the Griffin before even transitioning to SAR. So doing rappel, fast rope, helo cast, I was very comfortable with that already. So that was a plus for me. When it comes to the airborne stuff, I was never posted to airborne companies, so I can't speak for that. I just did the courses to give me to add more to my curriculum as a sniper. But it was a good exposure for sure before going to SAR. I knew I could do it.
Mm-hmm. So there's a fair bit of overlap in the skills and like the hard skills, and the end purpose is opposite, but a lot of the skills overlap.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What's the significance of the round and square parachute qualifications?
That's a tough one to answer. Like I said, I was never in an airborne company, so I never really employed it at the tactical level. It's kind of a rite of passage on the Army side. That course has been run. If you go back to World War II, I would say that course is pretty similar than the way they ran it back then. It's significant because people are proud of doing it. It's a tough course, and people are proud of going through it.
But what is the difference between a round and a square parachute qualification?
Okay, you're asking about the difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so a round parachute, it's a 35 feet round parachute, and you go straight down. You can't really control it. They tell you that you can, but let's be honest, you don't control it much.
Okay.
The square enables you, the way Army or SOF would use it, you can insert via free fall or static line. Free fall would be you deploy on your own. Static line would be it deploys as you get out of the plane.
Mm-hmm.
You can use it at very high altitude and fly it to your insertion point, or you can insert at very low level like SAR do, and then get to your target.
Okay. Can you tell us about your experience at selection, and how did it compare to your previous sniper training experience?
That's another turning point in my career, selection.
Yeah.
What I told you about the mindset of saving people versus doing the opposite, my mindset really switched 180 on selection. I went there with a bit of an Army mentality, and the staff just really changed it for me. I'll give you an example. You do an Army course or selection for a course, it almost feel like they're badge protecting or they're there to hurt people.
Mm.
I know that's not their goal, but it's tough, and it was a hard mentality. Now going to SAR selection, the staff would care for us. They would tell us, just be honest with us. We'll fix you up so you can continue. So the staff would come at night and look at our feet and fix us. And that really changed it for me. I was like, oh, they really want us here. So that was a turning point in my mentality, going from Army to Air Force. And then what did the selection look like? It's changed every year, but basically our selection is about 2 weeks. Start in Edmonton, where you do a bunch of physical tests, and there's classes where they teach you stuff. And then the second part, you go into Jarvis Lake, which is this SAR Tech camp, and where you run similar to air crew land survival course. So it is a course now. I don't want to speak into specific. I don't exactly know. I'm not at the school, never been at the school. But if I keep it broad, they teach you something and they expect you to do it. And I really had a hard time with that. Like I kind of second guess, like, why am I here right now? They teach me to split wood. Well, I was raised on a farm. I split a lot of wood. You don't need to teach me that. But they want this teach you to split wood. They want you to do exactly as they taught you. Well, later on the course, they teach you how to pack a parachute once, and that's the first parachute you jump.
Wow.
So it's very well run, and it also brings the level equal for everybody. So you have a Navy personnel that come in, never wear snowshoes on. Well, they teach you how to wear snowshoes, and they expect you to do it the same way as they taught you.
Mhm.
So selection was a good experience for me. I learned and I liked it. Coming from an army background gives us an advantage for sure in regards to carrying heavy load in navigation and survival. But like I said, they teach you everything during selection.
Can you tell us what happens after you make it through selection as a SAR Tech? What training is required before you're qualified?
After selection, you go through air crew medical, and then you go on course if you pass the air crew medical.
On the SAR Tech course?
On the SAR Tech course, and that's run in Comox. The course is a year long. You start with medicine at start because we're all PCP paramedics, so primary care paramedic. That was the hardest part for me, coming from an army background to now doing a paramedic course. Once you complete this, you go into every phases. So diving, the dive is taught by the Navy down in Victoria. You go into your sea survival, Arctic survival, RUIT, that's the overturn helicopter in the water.
Yep.
Followed by para phase, mountain phase, that's summer and winter, and then final ops, where everything kind of comes together, medicine into complex jump, mountain scenario. And once you complete that, you go on grad and you get posted to unit.
Man, it sounds like a crazy and like very difficult experience.
I would say there's some people that there's not a single candidate that's strong across the board. Everybody's got a phase that they struggle with. But you're with such a tight team that everybody kind of helps each other to go through it. I'll give you an example. I had a hard time with medicine initially, and then there was a medic on the course that just helped me go through it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with it coming in with the big language barrier, as you can see, it was harder for me. But I got through it, and the staff are there to help you to succeed.
Awesome. So on top of the training to get ready to be a SAR Tech, you folks have a ton of annual training to maintain. Can you tell us about some of that?
Yeah, that's same as the pilot. We're chasing currencies. We just had different stuff on top. So there's the day-to-day flying currency. So we need to do static line jump, and so 2 and a free fall jump every quarter. We also need to do night jump and a water jump and confined area. That's kind of the flying day-to-day. And on the rotary wing, we have to do clearance calling as well. Clearance calling is to call an helicopter to land into a very tight confined area. And on top of that, we need to do our diving currencies. So there's 6 dive at a minimum, 6 dive every 6 months.
Wow.
Which is quite challenging here in Winnipeg when it's minus 30. So we go down south in the winter for that. We also need to do a Mountain X every year to stay proficient mountain, and a Parasat every year to stay proficient with parachuting.
What's a Parasat?
It's a parachute saturation training. Normally you do a minimum of 15, I believe. But we normally do 2 dozen jump over like a week.
Okay.
Just to get saturated, because managing all those currency I mentioned, plus the flying, it's hard to get. We can't ask for 6 jump in a day here working, because all the other air crew in the plane, they need to change their currency. So it's not, we don't prioritize jumping on the day-to-day. If we can get 1 or 2, it's nice. But you don't picture it as takeoff and landing. If you do multiple in a day, you'll get better and you can correct your mistake right away. And that's why we go out to normally a civilian drop zone and conduct those type of training, so we can get more proficient.
Okay. Of all those requirements, what's your favorite and what's your least favorite, and why?
I would say I like them all.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
There's not one that you just like, oh, I got to do that today.
Well, initially I said I struggle with medicine, right?
Yeah.
So initially I didn't like doing medicine. But as I kind of push myself to go outside my comfort zone, I actually really enjoy it. Another example of that is a currency I didn't mention was we need to do 4 hospital shifts every year. So here in Winnipeg, we're fortunate we do it at HSC downtown. So we go work with the nurses, we see trauma patient, and we're part of the team downtown at HSC. Not a lot of people can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoy that. Of course, I enjoy being in a mountain. I enjoy diving down in Key West. I enjoy parachuting in Eloy, Arizona. Love all of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, and I guess I should have expected that because I don't think I've ever met a SAR Tech who didn't love their job. So
yeah. And another thing on that is, I just mentioned, we're going to Key West. We're going to in the mountains in Banff. A lot of people thinks it's like it's a Gucci training, but I tell you, when I'm there with my boys and girls, it's sunrise to sunset training.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're saturating, and it's we're not there to party. We're there to train hard, and that's the new generation right now. Like, people that are there, they just want to be the best at it.
Mm.
And again, that's the vision I had since 2 days into Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Is let's pre-expose them to hard training, so when big mission happen, they're already exposed to that stress.
Mm. How does a SAR Tech find out where their first posting will be? For pilots, I know that's a big deal. Is that like an exciting time for SAR Techs?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So, it's normally your own course, and the course NCO gives the course senior numbers. There's 2 guys for Trenton, 2 members in Greenwood, and so on. And normally the course find a solution, because the course NCO says, if you don't find a solution, we'll find one for you. I rarely heard of conflicts happening where it didn't work. Winnipeg, for some reason, is a hard posting to fill. I don't know. Well, I guess I know why. I didn't want to come here because there's no helicopters.
Mm.
But I love my posting here. I'm about to go in Trenton in the spring, but I've been here for 4 years soon, and I loved it. I love Winnipeg. It's a good shop.
Yeah, Winnipeg in general is a nice spot. I think it's a lot nicer than people give it credit for.
I think people are afraid of the city and the bad reputation the city brings, but Manitoba, like around Winnipeg, is awesome, and people are very nice and friendly around here.
I agree.
We loved it here.
What's it like to go from training to the operational world? Did you feel prepared?
That was a bit of a shock, because, like I said, you just finished your year-long course. Now you got your very bright orange suit. You're very proud of it. You show up to the unit ready to do the job, and someone like me will tell you, "Okay, pump the brake. You're still at the school training for at least 6 months." And they're like, "What?" Because now you need, same as a pilot, you need to learn the airframe. And for some unit, there's 2 airframe to learn. So it can take up to a year to get finally on the schedule on your own as a team member. And then when you think you got it figured out, you're a team member, you got to go up to team lead. And you're not qualified until you're team lead. Same as a pilot. Pilot's not fully qualified until they reach AC.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same training establishment. It takes 4 to 5 years to become a team lead. So you're constantly learning. And once you're team lead, you're still learning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the same in the aviation world in general, right? Like, you never stop learning. You're never suddenly an expert and now I know it all and I can stop learning. Like, I'm sure Jason can agree with that from the pilot side.
Yeah, I've always found, like, really for the pilots, like, their first flight at the squadron, it's taken them years to get there. Aircrew selection phase 1, 2, 3. But, like, that's your actual first day of the job. And then you're not even qualified to really do the job as an AC for, like, years later.
Mm-hmm.
And then even your first day as an AC, you're just qualified to, like, sign out the plane and take a crew on a mission. So
yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, you go through all this work, you've been training for years, you get your trade qualification, and you're like, yes, like, I did it. I know what I'm doing. Like I'm qualified. And then you get to the unit and you're like, oh, I'm just a baby. Like there's so much more to learn still. So
There's something we do here at the unit, and I want to keep it a bit of a secret. But basically, when the newer team members show up, we give him a good reality check where he's doing something medical, for example. And of course it will be tough because you haven't touched medical in a while, got posted, and then he's doing medical with me as a team lead. But I reassure them and I tell them, you know what? That's the worst you're going to ever be. It's right now, it's today, because we'll bring you up to become the best team lead.
Mm-hmm.
When RTMs, restricted team members, show up to the unit after course, we right away start to teach them to become team leads. We don't teach them to become team members.
And it's the same thing for the pilots. Like first officer, it's a temporary position.
Yeah,
we don't have first officers it's like throughout the Air Force, right? Like there's no career first officer. It's the start of a course from the first flight at the squadron.
So you've kind of talked us through the upgrade process just now. How would you say the responsibility changes as you move into the role of team lead?
Yeah. In the plane, it makes a big difference. I'll start on the plane and then on the ground. On the plane, the team members got less responsibility because he's less involved in mission planning, although we always talk to them and ask their advice. And everybody in the plane, low master, I know flight engineer, the navigator, when Jay and I are flying together, it's not our plan. It's not Jay's plan. It's as a group, and everybody's got their say. So they have a big responsibility, but the team lead is very involved in mission planning with the AC. Is very involved into the decision making of how we're going to conduct the mission. Of course, it's always the aircraft commander that's got the last say of go, no go. I kind of have to sell my plan to Jay before we get into it. So a bit more, mission planning, and also team lead's got a lot of weight on his shoulder when it comes to risk assessment. We'll touch on that on the mission.
Sure.
A lot more weight, because at the end of the day, I have my team members to take care of. And then once we're on the ground, the team members got also a lot of medical responsibilities, because the team lead will be very busy with mission planning, talking to the aircraft, talking to JRCC, which is the Joint Rescue Coordination Center. We call them directly. We talk to physician directly, or medical director here at OneCat if we need help on the ground. So it's, as a team leader, you're more involved into the bigger picture.
You're saying like when you're on the ground during a rescue?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And the team member will be more involved into hands-on medical skill. We always say the team member is there to make the team lead look good in the plane or outside the plane.
So Jason, you've been involved in several successful rescues other than the one we're going to discuss later on. Can you tell us a bit about those?
Yeah, sure. I think the one I'll talk about is the Kishkatena Lake one. And Vince was on it as well. So
okay.
About 3 months before the Air Tindi rescue, an area south of Kenora, a fly-in-only fishing camp, was it? A fly-in-only fishing camp. So it was in September. I got the call at 1 a.m. That's how they usually task us. We can talk about that more too. Like they call the AC and then give me the details. So tasking was pretty simple. There was a patient in medical distress. They didn't have a evac for him until the next morning. So they wanted us to go there, deploy our SAR Techs, and they would take care of him until the evacuation the next morning. So it had a lot of the same it was kind of like a building block mission that we used for the Air Tindi rescue. So flew there at night, quick, short, 40-minute flight, which was a lot different than the Air Tindi mission, just quick. We use a lot of the same techniques that we use to get the SAR Techs on the ground at night. So use the same type of jumps under flare. In this case, they actually landed in the water close to the camp. Once they were out, we were dropping them bundles as well, which was similar to the Air Tindi mission. And then they ultimately stayed with the patient all night. We orbited overhead, until a plane could come in the next morning, I think from Kenora, and bring him back up to Kenora. The biggest thing was like the crew though too. Like myself and Vince were on that mission. It was the same loadmaster and the same flight engineer that was on the Air Tindi mission.
Okay.
Just by circumstance, just by scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
So it really felt like, having worked with him on a mission like that, that was almost something we kind of could build on for a more complex, more dynamic mission that would come a few months later.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what did you learn from conducting this mission that helped you moving forward with the Air Tindi mission? But it sounds like partly you guys almost had like a rehearsal.
A little bit, yeah.
Under sounds like slightly easier circumstances.
From the pilot's side, I mean, they had additional complications with the water part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But from us, yeah, everything was just, weather was better,
Mm-hmm.
it was closer. Everything was, the winds were a little more complicated as far as flying some of the patterns, but yeah, it was definitely, yeah, calling it like a dress rehearsal building block kind of thing it's a good way to put it.
How was that for you guys once you got on the ground, or I guess into the water?
That specific mission, it was challenging on the medical side, that one, and I'm not going to talk about specific details for that.
For sure.
Well, I guess for this one was as soon as we leave the plane, we don't know how we're going to get back.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing with Winnipeg. So we don't have Yellow to support us. So you get out, you don't know how long, and you don't know what you're going to get into. This one was special in my mind because we had float plane extraction.
Oh.
So it's always a different way to get out of those missions.
Mm.
Like the 3 missions, the 3 jumps that summer was different extraction platform to load a critical patient into the back of a Cessna 172 when you're getting promised a beaver.
Yeah.
Kind of brings a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, a bit of a different size, eh?
When you got to fold the seat and kind of shove that person in the back. Not ideal, but you have to get people out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to improvise. That was a big lesson learned for me, is you got to improvise and make decision on the fly.
Okay. So Vince, you've also rescued people from crashed aircraft before the Air Tindi crash. Can you tell us a story about one of those experiences?
Yeah, plane crash are unfortunately, it's not always positive outcome. But there's some that people survive incredible crash and you just don't understand how they walk out of it. Same summer, 2023, we had a float plane crash just east of Lake Winnipeg in the bush. That was my first op jump as a team leader with a brand new guy. No, that was a second op jump, but still it was not super experienced. And then it was a 20-minute flight from Winnipeg. It was very short. Everything was ready on the ground. We did that in 2 passes. First pass, we dropped a smoke. Second pass, we did a confined jump at 2,000 feet because we know that we had confirmation that the plane there was a survivor. So we got it there quick. And then STARS came and pick us up after we stabilized the patient. We were back in Winnipeg for dinner. Yeah, that doesn't happen often here in Winnipeg. That was a good outcome. Still talk to that pilot, that survivor. You'll see later. I just tend to leave them my number if they want to reach back. Because it's a bit of a traumatic experience for both, for the survivor and for us. We don't have patients like that every day. That's a story we always remember. And still talk to him to this day. Great guy.
That's awesome.
Just unfortunate.
Yeah.
Fortunate he survived.
Unfortunate that he had to crash.
That he crashed.
Yeah.
I remember I wasn't flying that day, but I was just at the hangar at work, and pretty sure we saw the helicopter come back with our SAR Techs before our own Herc even got back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, that must be rare.
That's another long story for another podcast. But basically, what happened is that plane crashed. He had all the bells and whistles, so he built his own float plane with glass cockpit, 406,
which is a rescue beacon.
That's right. He had it. He's flying with the helicopter helmet on. He was flying with the survival vest, and he had a radio on, plus a spot beacon. And he was going from the States all the way up to Fort Smith. And then mechanical problem happened, and then he had to force land into rock, basically, bush and rock, like, what's it called? Canadian Shield.
Mm-hmm.
And then he broadcasts Mayday, a float plane in the area, which it's Paul. He's a old military pilot flying Sea Kings, now for Stars, now flying for a flying school near Winnipeg. So anyway, he heard the Mayday, and then he was circling the plane as we came in, and he called RCC directly to get us there. We executed the mission, jump, and then Stars, of course, didn't have any room in their small helicopter to pick us up. Well, Paul landed his float plane, grabbed a civilian helicopter, and came back to pick us up. Stars took off, and Paul landed. We jumped in, and he landed us right on the ramp in front of the hangar door and came for a coffee with us.
That's amazing.
That guy's amazing.
Wow. What did you learn from that mission that helped you with the Air Tindi crash?
Again, scene management, comms. This one was very dynamic. It was quick. Also, risk assessment to pick up the landing area for us. We did it very quick. Hindsight, I would wish I had asked for a second pass, right? I told you I was very proud to do it in 2 pass. Hindsight, maybe taking more time, which we used that during the Air Tindi. And communication.
Okay. So as we wrap up, we're going to ask you a few questions that we always ask our guests. What is the biggest thing each of you do to stay ready to do your job?
No, I think it's just preparation. Like a lot of the basic stuff we learn throughout flying training, trying to make sure I'm physically, mentally ready to fly whenever I'm on any type of posture. At any time, we can be expected to put in like an 18-hour crew day.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that starts at 2 a.m. or 9 a.m, so you have to be in some kind of space where you're able to do that. And other than that, it's routine. Like from when I first started flying training until now, I look at the weather the same way. I kind of am able to go through all the weather and the NOTAMs and stuff for our entire AOR and get a good picture of what's going on. That just gets you ahead. So when you get tasked and they say, oh, there's a plane crash or wherever, I might not know the exact ceilings in that location, but I've looked at the weather in the last few hours and like, yeah, that's where it's bad weather up there. I know what's going to be a concern again. I already feel like I'm ahead of the tasking. So just that routine, like even if I'm on standby on the weekend or something, it's not like I'm sitting there, for hours and hours looking at the weather, but get up in the morning, have my coffee, go through we have our iPads we use for flight.
Yep.
I'll take 10 minutes, get all the packages I need on my iPad and go through the entire AOR, make sure I'm just prepared for whatever comes. It's probably the daily routine. Do the same thing every day, the same way every day, and it just becomes second nature.
What about you, Vince?
Well, a couple of things. First, all of us stay very fit physically.
Mm-hmm.
That helps with what you need to do on the ground, but also for fatigue. The other thing is, again, the way I train people around me and myself. I want to make sure I'm ready for every single scenario. And the last thing I would say, it sounds a bit cheesy, but I visualize a lot of things. I kind of try to forecast as many scenarios as possible and take them through, especially before I'm about to jump into something like that.
Yeah, I would actually add to that. Like, that was the Air Tindi mission was my first plane crash in the Arctic, but it wasn't the first time I'd thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times you just kind of look at almost an area on the map and be like, how would I handle that? How would we get there? What kind of fuel do we take? What's around there for airports? And I'm sure you kind of do the same thing. Maybe how do you handle that situation on the ground, weather? So a lot of the places we go, although it's the first time that specific scenario we got into, we've either talked about it or on our own, we've just kind of walked through how we would handle that.
That's good training you can do without burning any fuel.
Yeah.
Yep.
On a ground training day, we'll get a couple pilots, SAR Techs, pick a point on a map and just plane crash there. What do we do? And we just walk through everything from our end, how much fuel we want, SAR Techs, what kind of gear they'd want. You just can talk through a whole mission. It takes a couple hours if you really go through it.
Yeah, we used to do sort of similar stuff with the Aurora, called it tabletop exercise. And you just walk your way through and for us in any submarine scenario or what have you. And it's very valuable. So I don't think it's cheesy at all. The visualization or walking through rehearsal, that kind of stuff, those are all keys to success that you'll hear from special forces people, advanced pilots. And I think a lot of successful people in dynamic trades use that stuff.
Then you throw a problem in, okay, we got our whole plan. What if that happened right there?
Contingency planning.
Yep.
So Jason, what do you think makes a great SAR pilot?
Yes, a SAR pilot in particular, it starts from that base level proficiency with aircraft, procedural knowledge, aircraft knowledge, all that stuff. That's going to be common for any type of pilot, I'd say. Something particular for SAR pilots, I'm going to add like flexibility. Vince and I were talking about this a little bit on the way here. Almost every mission or even training day we do, like something happens that changes, like nothing ever goes to plan. And a lot of the times we'll have a good plan. We're going to go do something. Then some small detail changes. Maybe the weather's different. Maybe there's some other asset out there that we didn't know about. Maybe it's something with our own aircraft. And it makes it so that whole plan you just spent like half an hour working through, it's just completely invalid now. You got to pivot a whole new thing you're going to do. And then maybe something changes again and you have to pivot back. So it's just not being a rigid thinker and just being flexible, being able to adapt to many changes during the course of a mission. I think that's key.
Okay. Vince, what do you think makes a great SAR Tech?
I would say someone that can stay calm under pressure. Picture yourself as the aircraft commander and you have a team lead in the back seat that you don't see what's going on back there. And he's trying to tell you that it is safe to jump with 2 new guys at night in an Arctic blizzard. You need a guy that's pretty calm and collected to sell you that plan for you to sign off on it. So that goes in the plane and on the ground, I would say, being calm in chaos.
Was that for a good SAR pilot or a good SAR Tech?
Both. Imagine as the aircraft commander, if you start freaking out because you don't like people in the back seat will not like it.
Yeah,
I assure you that. So I know when Jay and I are flying together, it's always a calm conversation, but it's not our only ideas. We kind of think out loud as the crew around us, because a lot of people have experience and have good ideas. And then for me on the ground or in the back, especially for Jay, being able to make a decision and live with it. Because we look at all the facets of the mission. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Let's execute now after we discuss it. So
yeah, sometimes a good thing on missions is usually it's the AC and the team lead for the most part that are coming up with the bulk of the plan. But everyone contributes. And sometimes what I'll do is I think we got a pretty good plan and how we want to attack something. If you just throw the question out there, hey, does anyone have any other ideas? And you just leave it open like that. You'd be surprised. It could be someone on the crew that you wouldn't even think they'll come up with something that's really, really good. So just if you create that environment, it works really well.
Yeah. And you never know. You mentioned people have different backgrounds. Like you never know, like, oh, this guy might have a degree or diploma or something and something that you don't even know about that's somehow adjacent to the task you're doing, or they may have some training in something that you didn't know they had or whatever. And before you know it, like they've come up with a great idea.
Yeah, we did a mission up north in a couple last fall. It was the same kind of thing. Like turns out our flight engineer was like from that area.
Yeah.
And he didn't really say much. And then next thing you know, he's just throwing out this local knowledge about that area. And it's like, wow, it's really good.
Yeah, it's useful. What advice would each of you give to a new member of your trade in the SAR community?
Sometimes it's better to not say a thing and keep your ears open. Keep your mouth shut and listen.
What about you, Jay?
Yeah, I would say just for upgrading, it's really the product of probably hundreds of daily efforts. Like you got to be doing something every day just to get a little bit better. You can't let weeks get away from you where you didn't accomplish something in either getting better flying, knowledge. You got to be putting those daily efforts in. And it all adds up if you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I had someone tell me once, like, even if you put in like 2 hours a day,
Yep. Just get better at
you don't
something.
need to be 8 hours a day destroying yourself in the books, but you put in a couple solid hours a day of learning, and you're going to be, by the time it's time to upgrade, you're going to be ready.
Yeah, like some of our guys, you show up to work. If you're not on the schedule that day and you're not busy, why not grab someone else and go down to the plane? Why not go just find a random SAR Tech and see if they can talk to you about some gear? There's always something you can do to just get a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, that's going to do it for part 1 of this chat. I'm really looking forward to the next one where we'll talk about the Air Tindi rescue. Jason and Vince, thanks for being here today, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Okay, that wraps up our chat with Jason and Vince about their time in the training system as well as some of their operational experiences. For our next episode, tune in as we discuss the Air Tindi crash and rescue on December 27th, 2023. Do you have any questions or comments about anything you've heard in this show? Would you or someone you know make a great guest, or do you have a great idea for a show? You can reach out to us at thepilotprojectpodcast@gmail.com or on all social media at @podpilotproject. And be sure to check out that social media for lots of great videos of our RCAF and mission aviation aircraft. As always, we'd like to thank you for tuning in and ask for your help with the big 3. That's like and follow us on social media, share with your friends, and follow and rate us 5 stars wherever you get your podcasts. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. Keep the blue side up. See ya!
Engineer, shut down all 4.
Shutting down all 4 engines.